Hello there, babies. Welcome to the den of dating. Today, we're gonna be delving into the world of men versus women. What do they think about dating? Do they agree with this? Do they disagree with that? And me, as a man, I will interject and give my opinions and stuff based on what I'm listening to. That should be fun, right? Incoming comments right now. Shut up! It's not fun at all, you rat-looking boy. But it's fun for me. But seriously, this is an interesting one. You are about to see me get angry a lot. Never did I think I'd get angry at a Jubilee video, but here we are. And you will be, have your ears massacred by Jessica Rabbit, and that will make sense as we bloody go on. So strap yourselves in. We're in the den of dating. It's a fun time to, well, be in the darkness. And don't question how I have a chair in what is basically a cave. I don't have an answer for that. Do you disagree or agree with that? Just play the video. We start off the video with this visual, and I know it's extremely irrelevant to the topic at hand, but this woman in the red dress looks like she's come from a Jessica Rabbit convention all about 3 seconds ago, or she was briefed that this would be a Strictly Come Dancing shoot, because that's extravagant. But you would come all dolled up when you're going to be discussing oh so important topics, such as...
Men and women cannot just be friends.
Yes they can. Because when you throw an absolute of a word, such as cannot, into the equation, that just doesn't make sense, because there literally exists friendships between opposite sexes. So I'm gonna call BS on that one. In my opinion, I'd strongly disagree. But I'm interested to see what people will say. This is the stance of everyone for your viewing pleasure. You notice the guy in the yellow shirt, his name is Asher. He's not really standing anywhere, and that's because he was in two minds about things, it seems. But Jessica Rabbit, who's in the strongly agree side, decides to bless us with her oh so wisdomous words.
There's always this underlying current to a man and a woman when they're just friends, because there's this sexual attraction, this energy that you can't even see it.
To say always is wild, in my opinion, because you've thrown your own absolute into the mix, always. Now, if we're talking a man and a woman being friends and they're both heterosexual, and you can't be friends with the opposite sex because there's always this underlying current, it seems you might have some concerns with controlling your desires. You may need some therapy for that, I can't lie, because I don't think that's healthy.
Men, as you know, you guys are conquerors. You want a conquest. You want to, even if it's a friend, sometimes that develops into more simply because law of familiarity, you start getting close and comfortable.
First of all, as a man myself, I can't say I've ever wanted to conquer anything. We're not in the Middle Ages and I've stepped off my Viking ship ready for battle. Like, give it a rest, Jon Snow up against all the Donnies. I'm just trying to live a peaceful life, man. Also, to describe building a romantic connection with another person as you wanting to conquer them, goodness me, you might have some controlling tendencies that you might need to work on. But, and obviously this pains me to say, I do agree with Jessica Rabbit here in that a friendship can blossom into a romance, but that's can, right? When you're chucking words like always, no. Jessica Rabbit is very hell-bent on it being always when you need to consider other people's sexualities, right? We talked earlier about heterosexual people, but what happens if a gay person is friends with someone of the opposite sex? Is there an underlying current of attraction there as well? Or does the response get flipped and the gay person can't be friends with someone of the same sex because the attraction will always be there. It's just BS, right? And goodness me, if you're bisexual, then you are a very freaky individual because you want to have sex with every Tom, Dick, and Harry and every Jess, Jill, and Mary. Forget friendships. You can't be friends with anyone because there will always be attraction there. Get a grip of yourself.
And maybe you weren't attracted to her initially, but that opposition of that sexual polarity always kicks in.
I love the imaginary Rubik's Cube that she's playing with there, but she seemingly confirmed that you can't be friends because at some point an attraction will build between the two of you. And that just harps me back towards you might want to get your urges checked out because it doesn't seem like you can control yourself. And that's actually quite concerning. Jenna here also brings up the point of a gay man. And, I mean, Jessica Rabbit just says, open your mouth wide, H. Let me defecate and rage bait you.
In that, there's always masculine and feminine energy, whether you're a man or woman. So if the man is gay...
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Let's hold on a second there, because I just need to stop it right there. Because when you say gay in quotations... what do you mean by that exactly? Gay. What is she implying here?
Guys, if the man is gay and identifies as being attracted to men, then he's in the feminine energy, mostly. Now, if there's two of them, there's one that's more masculine and more feminine, but that's for another.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
If you're on a show like this and someone is giving you side-eye like this, I'm afraid it probably means that you're spewing some kind of nonsense. Jessica Rabbit's talking about energy so much. My energy is channeling through Jenna. I'm exactly the same, facial expressions and all. You will know I very much disagree with you if we're having a conversation. I ain't got a Scooby what's going on here right now.
Two of my best friends are women. We have great times together all the time. Not once have I considered sleeping with them or anything like that.
Ever?
I do find it kind of upsetting that some people seem to get so shocked when someone says that they've never considered wanting to have sex with their friends, especially if they've been friends for a very long time. It's never crossed your mind? Bro, you seem very sex hungry. I can't lie to you. You know, we keep harping back to this lack of self-control. But you're giving me the vibe that you don't know when to control the pickling of your cucumber. Get a grip of yourself. Also, I kind of feel like your friendship is based on manipulation. If you are the type of person to just hang about in the shadows, so to speak, waiting for that opportunity to have sex with your friend, and, you know, you're doing all these nice things, maybe you're being there for your friend in difficult moments, all in the hopes of one day getting to sleep with them. You are a very big piece of shit if that's the kind of friendship that you're building up. Don't get me wrong. If attraction builds up over time and you genuinely end up falling physically for your friend, you communicate that. You don't keep that in the back burner. You let them know. And look, if the friendship ends because of it and it just gets uncomfortable, that's one thing. But if you stick around hoping, sort of being that perfect friend for the other person in the hopes that they're going to sleep with you, man, that's manipulating to me. Editing Age here, just wanted to chime in because I thought of this whilst watching this part back. There are obviously friendships where people do have feelings for the other person and they do keep it on the back burner just because they don't want to ruin the friendship, and I understand that. But I feel like it's still better. Now, this is for those who are not just manipulating things, right? They are genuinely friends with the person, but they have caught feelings, right? And they're not going out of their way in the hopes of having sex with them, but they're just continuing the friendship as normal. So this is for those type of people, not the type of people that will abuse friendship just in the hope of having sex with that person. You know the distinction, please, because I'm not good at explaining it, so I hope you've caught my drift. But for those people who do genuinely continue the friendship, but they do have feelings for the other person, I'd still recommend just explaining your feelings to the other person, because the longer it drags out, you know, I don't know if feelings really fade that quickly. I'm not sure. I guess it varies from person to person. If you're able to bottle your feelings, that's one thing, but I don't think that's particularly healthy. So that's why I recommend, opening up to your friend. If you're genuinely friends, they hopefully will understand and you can continue on as normal if they don't feel the same way. But maybe, and this is why I recommend you communicate things, if you open up and they also feel the same way, but they were also maybe waiting for you to communicate, oh my goodness, now a relationship has blossomed. So it's just better to do that. I feel like bottling things is never good, no matter the emotion. So I recommend opening up, but what the hell do I know, right? Jessica Rabbit then comes in with some bullshit, and I touched on it literally a few seconds ago in the whole being there for your friend in difficult moments.
In their darkest hour, in your darkest hour, come on.
What? Why? Why?
What the fuck do you mean in your or their darkest moments? I can't speak for everyone, of course, but I did not think about having sex with my friends during my darkest hours. And as I just said not too long ago, if your friend, going through their darkest hours, and you are there comforting them, because you might be hoping and holding out for them to sleep with you, to seek that comfort in you by being intimate with you, my goodness, you are a manipulative piece of shit. Now reverse this, right? If your friend then turns to you in their vulnerable moment and they want to sleep with you, I don't know how controversial this is, of course, but I'd recommend declining that advancement, because your friend is not really thinking that clearly in this particular moment, and they're seeking that sort of instant gratitude, that instant comfort, and they've attached sex to this instant comfort. And I'm sure if you are, of course, if you had good intentions, you wouldn't want to jeopardize this friendship by potentially having sex. So I'd recommend, waiting. If this friend of yours genuinely wants to sleep with you, then that will come at a point where you're both able to communicate with each other when there isn't such vulnerable times hovering over the pair of you. But if in the moment, you are being offered, then decline it, I would say.
You was just lonely. Like, it's been a moment, you didn't want to beat it. You know what I mean? Or
There's a special exemption. I'm non-monogamous, so I never have to worry about intimacy.
Well, that's why.
Well, so you getting played.
I'm not sure he's necessarily getting played if he's in an open relationship. If that's what everyone has consented to, then that's that. Can I just emphasize how creepy all of this sounds to me, by the way? Like, if you're feeling horny and you don't want to get a grip of yourself, we'll say, the next best decision is to go sleep with your friends? I don't see the correlation there. Take my advice with a pinch of salt, of course, because, look, I'm not a love guru, am I? I'm no relationship expert. But I feel like if you're horny and you don't actually want to please your own self and you'd rather go and sleep with your friends, I don't know if this is a case of you being horny anymore, or maybe you might just be a sex addict and your friends are the closest thing to you that might be able to offer you some kind of sex. You might be a sex addict. And in the first 2.5 minutes, I'm gathering here that we've got some sex addicts on the set, bro.
My perspective is from kind of a Christian worldview. Yes. I believe that, God created man and woman to come together in love and attraction, to be one.
Someone educate me in the comments if whether or not the Bible mentions you can't be friends with the opposite sex.
I have had some extremely close friends that were girls, and that attraction just developed because it wasn't just physical, but it was love. It was getting to see how they were around their family, around kids.
I guess this brings up the whole notion of romance building up over time. But is the feeling mutual here? Did you communicate these feelings? But ultimately, maybe, this seems a bit unhealthy to me in the fact that you seem to fall in love with women a bit too easily. Another good point to bring up here, I guess anyway, it's a good point in my frickin' brain. When he's at church, does he not have friends who are women in the church? Or, maybe he sees these women and everyone in the church as family, so it's not necessarily the same thing.
That attraction develops because I wasn't just looking at her from just, she's just a body. Yeah, she's just a piece of meat. You develop that emotional attraction, that emotional
Which is why I'm over here. Yes, joining this dark side.
Hold on. So does that mean his friendships between him and a woman initially all start out with the hopes of him building a romance? I don't think that's healthy. And whilst I very much respect the fact that you don't view women as pieces of meat, objectify them, that's all well and good. But I feel like there's a level of leading the other person on here, maybe, in the sense that when you maybe proclaim your feelings towards your friend and they then don't feel the same way, what happens to the relationship? What happens to the friendship? Does it now end? Because you've kind of led them on. You've kind of pretended to be their friend in a way, when deep down you expected to catch feelings for them. I don't know. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments your thoughts on that. Editing age here, I just wanted to throw into the mix the fact that he said some of these close friendships ended up with him obviously being attracted to the woman. Some, not all, which suggests man and woman can be friends, which means he should kind of be on the disagree side, because they can be friends. Regardless of his beliefs, they can be friends, because he's just said some of the close friendships have turned out that way. But let me know your thoughts.
I would date someone I do not find physically attractive.
I would say I strongly disagree here, because whilst I've always been an advocate that personality far outweighs looks, because looks fade. As you both grow older, looks naturally fade. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to say that you want to be physically attracted to someone before you even consider dating them, because that initial physical attraction is important. When you look at dating websites, for example, that initial physical attraction is what gets you talking to the other person in the beginning anyway, right? You, on Tinder, for example, you're scrolling past people because of looks, based on looks. When you meet someone in a coffee shop, for example, you look across like a freaking Hallmark movie. Oh, who is that? Oh, they are very good looking, as they sip their coffee, and okay, we're turning this a bit too cheesy maybe, but you get the point I'm trying to make. That initial attraction is important, and I don't think it's a bad thing, nor should it be vilified. Then you tie in intimacy, and not just sex. I know there's some people on this set right now that freaking are sex hungry, but
What did that just mean?
intimacy goes way past just sex. Simply holding hands, whispering into each other's ears, that's all tying into intimacy. So it's not just sex. But when you tie in intimacy, I'd like to hope that my partner is physically attracted to me to also want to hold my hands freaking in public. Do you know what I mean? It would hurt me like an absolute bitch if my partner said to me, yeah, I'm with you, but I'm not physically attracted to you. Is that okay? Now, I understand attraction can grow over time. I mean, freaking, we've been banging on about friendships, yeah? In that friendship, physical attraction can grow, because the more you get to know about this person, you start falling in love with their mindset and stuff. However, I'd like to believe that as you fall in love with their mindset, their personality, the little things that they do as their individuality, I'd like to believe that alongside that, the physical attraction is growing as well. It's not just the emotional attachment that you now feel. And speaking of emotional attachment, I think it's very important here to acknowledge that just because you are emotionally attached to someone, it doesn't mean you need to be dating them, okay? Some people are just better off staying as friends, but I don't want to get too off topic. Let's keep things moving on. This is the stance of everyone for that particular comment, and Frank is standing all alone in the strongly agree side, and he brings up the fact that attraction can be built up over time.
Sometimes there's some people that I learn just by not going in based off physical attraction is I end up being attracted to them just because of their personality, and looks can be deceiving.
See, I get what he's saying, but being attracted to their personality, are you still saying here that you're not physically attracted to them? And when we're talking about dating here, because it doesn't really get clarified, are we talking about like a first date, a second date, early stages? Or are we talking about dating, sometime down the line, a few weeks, a few months? I need context here. And I guess regardless of the context, surely at some point you have to find your partner physically attractive. No? I feel like it might be seen as like a bad thing that people want to be attracted to their partner, because maybe this whole notion of personality outweighing looks, and whilst I agree with that, I still don't think it's a bad thing to want to be attracted to your partner physically. But I don't know, I get the vibe some people think it's a taboo conversation or something.
I could say the same on the opposite end, where I thought someone was absolutely attractive, but then I got to know them and they were the worst person I could have possibly been on a date with.
See, that's true, and that's the whole personality outweighing the looks aspect that I was talking about, because you do need to consider different circumstances. Some people are unfortunately content, happy, being with a particular someone who might be very well good looking, but they're a horrible sack of shit to be around. And in my opinion, I don't think it's worth jeopardizing your mental and sometimes even physical health to be around this person. I know we cover a lot of romance scams on this channel, but I think you could bring them in to provide an example here, in that a lot of romance scam victims are happy to be with their online lover because they look a certain way, and they're happy, depending on circumstances in their life as well. Maybe they don't really have the best of luck with relationships, so they're gonna settle down with this very attractive person because they think they can't do any better going forwards in the future. But a lot of romance scam victims are accepting of abusive behavior because they feel like they can't, again, do any better. But then you obviously tie in some victims who very much chase age inappropriate, creepy relationships, and well, then you're opening up a whole can of worms that's just totally unrelated. But then Jenna swoops back in, channeling the H energy once again.
You can definitely not be attracted to somebody initially, and then as you get
I feel like at that point, like once I like someone's personality romantically, I probably also think they're attractive.
After Jenna said that, Asher, the guy in the yellow shirt, you can see that he moved position again, and if you've noticed anyway in the clips, he does move quite a lot, which I kind of understand. You're presented with new information, so you make your decision based off of that new information, but I feel like he might be moving around a bit too much. Maren then chimes in with something that I agree with too.
I think that a certain element of physical attractiveness is fitness, health, hygiene, and that reflects on usually competence, responsibility, and dedication. But I do see it as important, although not the whole package by any means.
Whilst I agree, I do think it's important here to talk about the fitness, hygiene, and the health aspects. We've seen some stories on social catfish, for example. Yes, we're bringing them back in, but we're talking about relationships, and romance scams, relationships do bleed into them. We've seen stories where people, the victims in particular, are no longer attracted to their partner physically because of certain changes, such as their partner has potentially gained some weight. And then because of these changes, they will completely degrade them on camera. Whilst I do think physical attraction to your partner is important, I also really must urge everyone that life isn't cookie cutter. People will change. We touched on it a little bit earlier, that when you grow older, naturally your looks will change. If you're expecting your partner to look the same at 30 years old compared to even 40 years old, you're bloody delusional. And then you tie in health in terms of certain conditions maybe affecting the way your partner looks. And if you're still in that mindset of looks over personality, I have to question what made you even enter this relationship in the first place. And another thing to consider, which I think is very important, is the emotional health in the relationship. How someone treats their partner can have an effect on their partner's fitness, health, and hygiene. Because
Stop it. Get some help.
In abusive and toxic relationships, I personally think some people will naturally struggle to keep up with certain aspects of their health if their mental health is not in a good place. And I might even go as far as let's tear all that shit down for a second. Outside of relationships in general, I think people who struggle with their mental health also will struggle with their physical health, and that's life. It happens. But bringing back in the relationships, since that's the topic of this video, if you are emotionally abusive to your partner, maybe physically abusive, and your partner no longer is mentally here with you and mentally in a loving state of mind with you, naturally they're just not going to want to do things with themselves and take care of themselves because their mental health is suffering as a result. And then the toxic pieces of shits will turn around and crucify their partner. You've let yourself go. How could you do this to yourself? XYZ. Oh, why are you not having sex with me? Yeah, because you treat them like a sack of shit and they are deteriorating in front of your eyes. And you're too selfish to open your freaking numbskull of a brain to recognize that you're playing a huge role in this. Going back to the whole, you've put on weight, you've let yourself go. Yeah, because the only comfort that they can seem to find is with food, because you, the sack of shit partner, aren't really helping your partner. So, whilst I think it's important to acknowledge the physical attraction aspect in relationships, it's not the be-all and end-all, okay? Once you actually do start a relationship with someone, yeah, cool, you're both physically attracted, you're gonna have to learn to put that on the back burner because now you actually need to take care of your partner emotionally. Editing H here, just chiming in because I feel like it's important to have the following difficult discussion, seeing as we spoke about an abusive partner playing a role in their partner's deteriorating health. I also think it's very important to acknowledge that a partner can suffer fitness-wise, health-wise, hygiene-wise without an abusive partner as well. Some relationships, as loving as they are and as emotionally secure as they may be, let me know in the comments, without going into too much detail, of course, if you have ever experienced such a thing or have seen it. There are relationships that, as loving as they are, one partner does begin to suffer health-wise, maybe because they start abusing alcohol, for example. So in that regard, I strongly urge you, of course, to communicate. But more often than not, if it's very severe abuse of substances, for example, professional support is needed. And I draw in my 600-pound life, for example. Some people do just find comfort in food, but it quickly spirals out of control, which again, please seek professional support. As loving as the relationship can be, sometimes people will suffer mentally, and it's nothing on your part, it's nothing on the relationship's part, but outside factors maybe such as work or again, like just please see a professional and get support to figure out why this is happening and the best course of action to take. We do speak a little bit on that communication. It's important, in my opinion, but sometimes communicating just you and your partner can't solve everything. So please seek professional support if that is the case. And to be honest, if you are with an emotionally abusive or physically abusive or even just toxic partner and you struggle to escape that anyway, do seek professional support as well, because sometimes you just can't burden things all alone. Oof, sorry about all that. Maybe I got a bit too heated and maybe I waffled on a bit too long, but I just felt it was important to highlight the significance of emotional health, if that's even a phrase. I'm coining it now, though. It's important to recognize that alongside the physical attraction, because relationships are more than just looks, of course. We saw Asher move, from one side to another, and now he's moving back to the other side, and here's his reasoning.
If I'm meeting you in person and you don't look good, then I'm over there with y'all. But if I'm meeting you through a dating app and I get catfished, but you're kind of cool.
He goes on to give the story that he was catfished and her personality made him consider wanting to be in a relationship with her, date her. But the key word here is consider, right?
Because I met a girl that had nice pictures. But then when I seen her in person, she was a little bit bigger than I prefer, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Well, everyone can have nice pictures today.
Yeah. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a bit bigger, but for preference sake, I wasn't really feeling it.
There's nothing about what you've described here as you finding her physically attractive. And the fact that you're standing on agree means you would date someone you don't find physically attractive. And that's not what your story is saying, because you considered it, but you ultimately didn't date her because of your physical preferences. So I'm a bit confused on why the hell you're stood on agree. Now, I might have just missed something there, and maybe you guys will let me know in the comments if I've seen this the wrong way. But I feel like maybe he's doing too much to seem as if he is a nice guy. And because of that, it's kind of backfired, because your story didn't make sense with where you're standing. But let me know your thoughts. Jessica Rabbit comes back in, and it took me this long into the video to actually realize that her name was Janelle. So there you go. Janelle swoops back in with some more bullshit.
If you're not initially attracted to that person and have a strong sexual attraction, then it's not going to work, because we know that relationships get worse, not better.
Really?
I genuinely think the more that she adds in all these hand gestures and stuff, I think it makes her think that she comes across smarter than she actually is. Relationships get worse than better is wild, because how do you know what every relationship is like? And I'd like to believe that relationships do in fact get better and better for some people the more that you are together, because at some point in relationships, some people get married, and I'd like to believe that's because you both feel very much comfortable enough that you're their one, and vice versa. So that's getting better. No? Everything she's saying sort of gives me the vibe that she's been hurt before, and whilst I think a lot of people have been hurt before, I think she hasn't really taken the time to heal from the past trauma. And now this is just me speculating, of course. I don't know if she's actually been in a traumatic experience concerning relationships before, but that's the vibe I'm getting. She's never really healed from things, and her view on relationships are clouded because of it. And whilst I think physical attraction does play a part in actually dating someone, I don't think you need a strong sexual attraction to actually want to start dating someone, because goodness me, does that mean you meet someone in a coffee shop, for example, for the first time? You've never met them. Okay, you don't meet them. You see them in the coffee shop, and maybe you approach them and, ask their name and stuff, Hallmark movie vibes we were talking about. Are you thinking in the back of your head, goodness me, I strongly want to have sex with this person? Oh my God, you sound like you need help.
Cheating is the worst thing my partner could do to me.
As someone who has been cheated on, I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. Have I ever mentioned that, anyone? You guys probably know my answer for this. No.
Oh my.
Now that might come as a shock to some people, but whilst I think obviously cheating on someone is an incredibly shitty thing you can do, my goodness, I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing that you can do, like hyperbole, of course. I'd rather be cheated on than someone stabbing me in my bum cheeks. You know what I mean? And in all seriousness, there are a variety of relationships out there where people are experiencing very traumatic things. They are suffering any form of abuse, be it mental, physical, and financial. So I'd think that is worse than getting cheated on. This is everyone's stance on the screen right here, which is a bit surprising to me maybe, in the sense that I would think more people would consider the vast experiences that people are living through. You know, we touched on the abusive relationships. I don't necessarily think people in this shoot are considering that fact, but yeah, let's hear what they have to say.
I feel like there's like probably worse things like in theory that a partner could do to their partner, but just because that's such an important aspect for me, and like I feel like my partners in the past have like been very aware that was like something that I actively would not do. I feel like that would just that adds like an extra element of evil.
I feel like that logic means she should be stood on disagree then, no? You literally said there's worse things in theory, which, I mean, I get it. I understand it's the worst thing that can happen to you in your mind, I guess, but it's just not. But maybe I'm taking this too literally. Maybe this little statement, I'm just hitting it too on the nose, maybe. Maren says similar in that cheating would destroy her, and then Blue Shirt Guy then chimes in to explain and give his experience of how cheating or being cheated on affected him a lot.
I struggled with self-esteem so much growing up, and that was the worst thing that could have happened. That destroyed any chance I had at self-love at that time.
I definitely agree with him that this is an absolutely brutal, booty hole twisting experience that can really change your perception of your own self, and it really makes you think that you're not good enough for someone in the future, or at least, you know, that's how my mind was seeing things back in the day. I also struggled a lot with schoolwork back in the day, back in sixth form when I was cheated on, because I wasn't really focusing too much on school at that point. I was more thinking about, you know, obviously it's very dramatic looking back on things now, but, you know, I was a young whippersnapper and all that. It did make me feel as if I wouldn't be good enough for anyone in the future. And ultimately, it took me a few years to even consider wanting to speak to anyone romantically again. So I feel like, you know, a lot of people who do cheat, one, you know, it's not just a physical mistake that you've made. You can miss me with all that bullshit, all right? But I don't really think they understand or consider the true extent of how damaging it is to someone's mental health. And going on the whole physical mistake aspect, you know, there is a lot of moments in between you cheating and then you either confessing to your partner or them finding out that you've cheated. There's a lot of time in between where you can recognize the wrongdoing in your actions, but hey ho, if that's what you want to believe, then all power to you and your relationships. Asher explains how cheating isn't really all that to him, and the story he gives to sort of back himself up is crazy.
Bro, I had over $250,000 stolen from me this year, bro. And that put me in a dark-ass place. Now imagine, if my partner stole that money from me, or she was just a homie, I'd be more mad about the money, you feel me, right?
I don't have that money to be stolen.
So you're saying you care more about money than a relationship?
Yes. When we're talking about someone stealing $250,000 from me, I very much care more about the money than the relationship here. Can we, like, live in the real world, please? I feel like Phoenix here, obviously girl in the orange jumper, it's green, not orange. Where'd I get that from? But I feel like she gave off very rich vibes there. Very snobby. Ugh. You mean to tell me someone stole a little $250K from you and you'd rather just cut off the relationship? That's what you care more about? Yes, actually, if you feel that way about someone taking 250k from you, can you send it my way, Phoenix? Despite standing on the strongly disagree side, I actually thought me and Janelle had finally seen eye to eye on things, but I've got 4 eyes, so she didn't really match me because she's back with her bullshit again.
The sanctity of marriage is supposed to be till death do us part. That doesn't mean if your carnal flesh gave in and you had, an indiscretion that you're able to hit the door running. No, that means there's work to be done.
What the is going on in here on this day?
With the utmost respect here, shush and get a grip of yourself. Work to be done. The only work you need to be concerning yourself with here is packing your things and leaving that sack of shit. Don't you dare spin this into a case where the person being cheated on is the person that needs to look within themselves to figure out what they can do to change so that the person cheating on them will no longer cheat on them. Don't you freaking dare.
For me, I think it actually can be the best thing because it's a sign that there is a huge problem in the relationship that needs fixed.
Well, I can't do that because I'll hit the microphone, but she spun it. She spun the story. I really hate, and I know hate is a strong word, but I really hate her perception of cheating. The thing that needs fixing here is your partner's very apparent lack of respect for you and the very apparent lack of control that they seem to have. You can kiss my ass, all right? Yeah, double-cheeked up, mwah, mwah. You can European style my ass if you think you're cheating on me and I'm taking you back. Now, some people feel very strongly about my stance on cheating in the comments because they themselves have either taken back a cheater or, in some cases, freaking both of what I'm gonna say, they themselves have actually cheated and been forgiven. But I cannot stress enough that ultimately, everyone will do what they're going to do. You've done what works for you and your partner. But I know this might sound hypocritical given the fact that I've always said, even freaking now, that people will do whatever they want to do. I recommend not taking back a cheater. I don't care if they say you can talk things out, give them another chance, X, Y, Z. You very blatantly disrespected me and broken the trust. What's to say you're not going to do this again? I'd rather take my time and energy instead of repairing what, in my opinion, can't be repaired and use it with someone else who genuinely respects me and would never even consider doing such a thing.
Most sex is not emotional.
I'm so confused.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Maybe the sex you, Janelle, maybe the sex you're having is without emotion. But I very much like to believe that there are people still out there like me who will have sex with someone genuinely they love. But let me know your thoughts because, I don't know, am I like an alien thinking that? Like, is that crazy?
So it's just a bodily act that animals do and you're going to blow up a marriage or a relationship with children over sex?
Mate, she's got to be rage baiting or something. Like, I'm like 99% now believing that she was hurt in the past and she still hasn't recuperated from that. Or someone valued sex over everything with her. Or someone cheated on her. Or she cheated on someone and was either gaslit by the cheater or she herself did the gaslighting to make people believe that cheating isn't all that.
I've gotten over it.
I have gotten over it. If my husband cheats on me, of course I'd be devastated. I'm human, I bleed just like all y'all too, but I'd be like, damn, like, what's the problem here? What's the issue?
See, but that's,
and can we solve this?
Why don't you just talk?
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, there's a level of smugness that I feel is exuding when he says, why can't you just talk? Because there's nothing to talk about. Again, it's hypocritical because I say people should just do what they want to do, but I really recommend you not talking about things. The only thing you should talk about things with a cheater is how swiftly you can exit the relationship.
If you had children and if you had a family involved, you would break up your family over a man's one-time indiscretion.
Oh my God, bro, like the person doing the cheating has broken the family. Shush! In my opinion, you also show your children that this is okay. You should take back a cheater. You be disrespected, don't worry. Freaking sweep it under the rug and take them back. And I'll throw you a curveball. How do you know it was a one-time thing? I mean, this person literally has disrespected you to the point of getting their jollies off with someone else. So there clearly is no trust here. How do you trust what they're saying? They might have been getting their jollies off for freaking 9,000 years and you're just finding out about it now and they're only saying, yeah, it's just a one time though, as a way of making you feel and gaslight you into believing them, hey, please take me back, it's just one time mistake. Editing H once again here. I just wanted to say I'm not naive to the fact that some people do choose to stay in the marriage, especially when there's kids involved. If, for example, the financial situation doesn't exactly make it easy to just up and leave the other person. So it breaks my heart to know that such things exist, because in an ideal world, you'd just leave the sack of shit. But I know that if you were to take the kids elsewhere and perhaps you don't exactly have the financial situation to be able to survive without the sack of shit's freaking income, it just makes it complicated. It gets extremely difficult. Let me know in the comments, is there any kind of professional support that people can seek in such an instance? I know obviously there's financial support in terms of getting loans and whatnot, but that might not be ideal for everyone to just get a loan and, you know, be in debt. So I'm stumped. Like in a situation like that, it's sad that some people choose, and maybe not even choose, it's their only option, to just put on a brave face and say, yeah, no worries, I forgive you. And deep down, they know they're only in that relationship still for the kids. So if you do know of any support people could seek, let me know in the comments. Let everyone know, of course, because it's heartbreaking to know that some people genuinely are in loveless marriages for the sake of the kids, you know? If you thought Janelle couldn't say anything worse, oh, she does. In breaking up the family, the person who's been cheated on
adversely affect your child and possibly send her to the stripper pole.
What the hell is she talking about, bro? Genuinely, someone let me know, because I haven't got a Scooby. There's no amount of Scooby snacks that can help me understand. You could have Shaggy here, Velma here. Velma, with all of her intelligence, couldn't even figure out what's going on here. She's thrown all strippers under the bus for some shitting reason, because all strippers, according to her, come from broken homes. You can't be a stripper if that's what you genuinely want. You must come from a broken home. And I don't think I need to explain just how strongly I feel about her seemingly, and maybe not so seemingly, very freaking directly placing all the blame on the person being cheated on.
It was more than just like a physical thing. Like, that's a break of trust, and I feel like if you can't have that trust in someone, then I also don't want them to be like raising my kids with me.
I agree with this. If you can't stay faithful to your partner, the freaking parent of your children, I'm not sure there is anyone on this earth who you wouldn't betray. I saw a quote once, and I guess it's kind of relevant here. The quote said, you shouldn't trust someone who cheats on their partner. Like, you shouldn't trust them, like, go into business with them. Because if you can do that to your partner, what are you gonna do to me concerning this business?
So we're all saying that love is conditional is the end of
Yeah,
Yes,
100% agree with that.
Yeah, on the condition that you don't cheat on me. Why is she speaking about this as if her partner ate the last yogurt from the fridge or something? This is a big thing. Love comes with the condition that your partner respects you enough to not want to hurt you. Why is that such a crazy concept?
Monogamy is overrated.
I personally don't think it's overrated because I think it's a very beautiful thing to be able to find that one person who truly wants to be with you, and you build a life together, you share your life together and all sorts. But I am not naive to the fact that a lot of people just can't find comfort with this, right? They either do turn to open relationships, or very much so, I actually think this particular part is underrated. Just be single. You know, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. Relationships aren't the freaking be-all and end-all of life. This is everyone's stance, and it's not a surprise to me that Frank is in strongly agree because he's in a polyamorous relationship.
If that's what you want to do, go for it. But I do think that non-monogamy and poly relationships should be something that, like, it's looked at as an option.
And you will do what feels right for you. What I do feel is overrated, actually, is when people force a relationship onto another person. In the sense that there are people who attribute happiness to being in a relationship, and being in a relationship is the only way you can feel happy, and you know, those type of people who make relationships their entire personality. And we touched on it not too long ago. Being single, I think, is very underrated. I think it's important to learn to be content within your own self and to recognize that happiness does come from within you, because whilst, of course, you can be happy in a relationship, it shouldn't be the sole reason you're happy. Because if that relationship ends, for example, are you now just automatically unhappy as a result? So learn to be happy with yourself, do things that make you happy. And a relationship, should you choose to have one, monogamous or polyamorous, doesn't matter. As long as you're happy with yourself and living life anyway, yourself as an individual, and you're not just attaching yourself to a relationship for the sake of it, honestly, you're doing just fine.
I don't mind monogamy, right? I just don't like a controlling relationship where it's completely like, no, you can't f nobody else, but at the same time, you want to f me once or twice a month. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like if Janelle says exactly to something that you've said a bunch of bullshit. I don't know too much about the context behind his relationship, so I can't really speak too much on it, but in a more generalized sense, unless you're both genuinely working so much, you don't have the time, you don't have the energy. If your partner is treated well and is feeling emotionally secure with you, and vice versa, you're just gonna have sex more than once or twice a month, like all things considered. And, you know, I guess you need to also consider libido. I mean, if there are any underlying conditions that your partner may have, that would affect their libido. So you need to speak to your partner about that, really. And if you're gonna talk about this kind of thing, I feel like maybe he can give more context, but
But for 2.5 years out that relationship, we was barely f***ing. We're like maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Then I moved her in the crib. Yeah. And then when I moved her in the house, for the whole first year of her living in the house, she just didn't want to have sex.
See, he seems like a nice guy, but given the fact that we cover a lot of videos where the person talking or sharing a story sometimes leaves out a lot of things just to make themselves seem a bit better. Now, I might be just obviously being a bit too cynical here, but I feel like there's something missing from his story. Also, a pet peeve of mine, and I know I'm going to sound like a fuddy-duddy here, but calling sex, you know, using the F word to describe sex, I feel like it shows me you don't really have the appreciation behind the connection that sex should have. But hey, that might be just me. He goes on to say that him and his partner had an agreement that they could do things, but they just didn't want to hear about it. But ultimately there were other things in the relationship that just complicated things and they ended up breaking up. But I guess that sort of goes back to what I was saying, that I feel like something's missing from this story. Maybe those complicated things might provide more context as to why she didn't want to have sex more than once or twice a month, but I guess we'll never know.
A sexual person, just curious though?
Like, kind of.
Kind of?
Sure.
It's like, yeah.
So if your partner was very sexual too, and he's like, baby, like, I want to be with you, but you always just shut him down because you ain't in the mood.
That's like never happened.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm having to say this, and I've said this, I feel like freaking too many times. I feel like once is enough, but here I am again. If they're not in the mood, your partner's not in the mood. Okay, just because you're in a relationship, it doesn't entitle you to your partner's body. Communicate with your partner. Maybe there's something up and that's why they don't want to have sex. Or maybe there are deeper underlying issues, such as maybe a health issue, or maybe they genuinely just no longer feel any attraction towards you. You gotta communicate that. And then you'll figure it out from there. Like, the vibe I'm getting here is there's just too much attachment on sex. If you're both never intimate with one another and you've communicated this and you've tried to act on your communications to try and solve what might be the issue here, maybe you've even gone to see a counselor and nothing seems to be working, perhaps genuinely the attraction has just gone.
Listen, men need sex to create intimacy. Women need intimacy to have sex.
I mean, I feel like less of a man the more Janelle talks, because the men that she's describing makes me feel like I am not the man she is talking about. I personally would want my partner to be intimate with me in various ways, not just sex. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but holding hands, you know, giving compliments. There's more to intimacy than just sex. Like, freaking, you could be cuddled up. I was going to say that couch back there, but it might be weird if you and your partner are on my couch. But you get the point. You and your partner could just be sitting on the couch, snuggled up, watching a movie. That's intimacy. By this logic, like, if a man was to have sex with a sex worker, is he now attracted and wants to date the sex worker because sex equals intimacy? And on the flip side, does the worker feel a type of way about their client because intimacy equals sex? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? Sex doesn't equal intimacy, and intimacy doesn't equal sex. Freaking, I got tongue-tied there. Goodness me. Editing age here. Bet you're getting sick of me. I just needed to clarify though, that whilst it can be an intimate thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that sex is the only thing that contributes to intimacy. And if you're not intimate, if you don't have sex, do you understand what I'm saying? Because sometimes I don't, but I really hope you bloody do. Janelle does actually go on to say something that I do agree with, and yes, I will make sure after this recording to wash my mouth out with soap because I've said that.
People get married and then fuck around. It's like,
Yep.
Just don't get married then.
If you are someone who doesn't feel like wanting to settle down and doesn't feel like wanting to commit to someone, that's okay, as long as you communicate that with the other person. Maybe they've confessed their feelings to you, but ultimately, actually, scratch that. If you are speaking to someone, I would hope you would have the decency to let them know from the beginning that, hey, I'm not looking for anything too serious here, so just letting you know now before you get heavily invested. And, just don't waste people's time and don't waste your time in the process.
And no disrespect, but I do think polygamy is just laziness.
Not polygamy. This is polyamory.
No,
polygamy is when it's multiple wives,
Polyamorous.
just one person.
I see that as laziness, that you don't want to commit to someone in the hard time.
See, I gotta play devil's advocate here, but it's not even playing because I feel this way. How do you know Frank hasn't had hard times in his relationships? Frank then asks the red hat guy why there is such a high divorce rate.
Because they're not Because our country, I think, is lazy.
Huh? Now, I mean, look, I guess we're getting a bit controversial here, but Red Hat Guy obviously takes the viewpoint from a religious stance, which, by the way, if you don't know, he's religious. He never mentioned that during the video at all. Sense the sarcasm, he mentioned it quite a lot. And what we've seen from like social catfish, for example, the people who repeatedly proclaim their religiousness, there's iffy things about them, but I'm not saying Red Hat Guy is that, by the way. I'm just interestingly pointing out that every time he speaks, he mentions the religious aspect. But I know he's taking the religious standpoint, but to say that divorcing someone is lazy is just freaking ridiculous. And dare I say, it's lazy of you to say that, because you're not taking the time to consider the experiences that other people might be going through. Not considering the range of trauma that people experience that would make them want to divorce their partner. I mean, we touched on it quite a bit, actually, but abuse, toxicity, cheating, I mean, even freaking just growing apart from one another and you're no longer compatible, you have to divorce, I mean, for the sake of you both, right? I just don't feel like it's lazy. It's actually protecting your mental and, again, sometimes physical health. Whilst I think communication is obviously very important in a lot of scenarios, I think people shouldn't attach too much weight onto communication, because as I've said in the social catfish videos, in regards to people trying to communicate with a scam victim who might be their parent, for example, and the victim doesn't want to listen to anything that they're saying, there comes a point where you have done everything you can. You have communicated all that you can, and you have to take a step back before it becomes a further detriment to your own self. Look, unfortunately, sometimes you just have to go separate ways. No matter how long you've been together, there might come a point where it's in everyone's best interest that you just go separate ways. And especially when you start tying in children and you now bring up the notion of you're breaking up the family because you're getting a divorce, but you have to consider what are the children seeing here? If the children are not seeing a loving relationship and, the two people in the marriage aren't able to properly love each other in front of the children, who does that benefit staying together? Now, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of marriages do stay together for the kids, but ultimately that's in their prerogative, right? I'm just saying all this so that anyone who does feel like they have to divorce their partner, I just don't want you to feel guilty about it because society tells you, you're lazy or something. Just do what's best for you. Now, regarding this monogamous segment, I actually think it went on too bloody long, okay? Like, how much can you really discuss if someone should be monogamous or you think it's overrated or not? Like, it's not your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not your love life. You've got no input. If someone wants to be in an open relationship, go do that. If you want to be single, go do that. If you want to be in a monogamous relationship, go freaking do that. It just went on for too long. But I guess, look, there would be no YouTube video if they freaking just moved on the segment after one sentence. So I guess forget I said that. And then lastly, the all too important question from this video. Well, this is it.
I would date someone in this room.
I'd like to get to know them actually a little bit more, but obviously they would also need to want anything to do with me when, I mean, let's be honest here. Look at me and look at the people I'm going to, choose if I had to choose, right? I'd actually pick Jenna and Maven more so because their mindsets are similar to mine. Ultimately, I'm content how things are right now, but you know, if I had to pick, I would pick those two. After some discussion between them, this is their final stance, and I anticipated green jumper woman Phoenix and red hat guy, who as of right now, I can't remember his name, so I apologize. I anticipated they would end up on some sort of same level, because throughout the video, if you guys check out the original as well, you'll be able to see that they kind of look at each other when they're speaking and sort of bounce off each other, so I guess it makes sense. And he also called her gorgeous, and their belief systems align, so, you know, Cupid shot his arrow, and love making on the show.
Are you sure?
Oh, what a video, huh? I'm thankful this is coming to an end now, because, goodness me, I didn't expect to get as heated as I did watching a freaking Jubilee video, right? The freaking airplane in the sky right now is so loud as well, almost it wants me to drown out everything I've just watched from my head and just chuck it out. That didn't really make sense, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Overall, I think it was a very interesting video. I do appreciate, now obviously, whilst I'm disagreeing with a lot of what was said here, I do appreciate the fact that there are people with different mindsets who, if they believe what they're saying or not is another question. I can, is appreciate the right word? I don't know, but I find it fascinating to sit there watching people of different opinions debate these things, and I think it's cool to discuss them. That's how much I will say, right? Obviously, I didn't agree. Did it come across as if I didn't agree sometimes? But I think it's good. You can learn from things like this. Unless people are spewing absolute bigotry, then I don't think you should learn anything from people like that. But overall, interesting video. I do think it could maybe benefit. Obviously, I'm not telling Jubilee with 10 plus million subs how to frickin' run their channel. But maybe there could be like a somewhat agree and somewhat disagree section. Adds a bit of nuance to the conversation, because I feel like the 4 options there maybe, you know, I don't want to say they're not fantastic, get it? But maybe it constricts opinions a little bit. I don't know. I feel like maybe for future stuff they could do that. But also I just need to point out, which I've said many times now, maybe some of the people there are a bit too sex hungry, okay? There's other things to dating than sex. I feel like we just had a bunch of 18-year-olds there who don't really understand maybe relationships, don't have much experience with relationships, which I don't know everyone's backstory and whatnot. Maybe they don't have extensive experience. But some people, they were doing too much, I think. Janelle, for example, mentioned her husband, and I don't know if it was hypothetical or not, but her viewpoint on a lot of things, if she does have a husband, cheating is essentially a mistake, relationships get worse, not better, and sex doesn't really involve a lot of emotions, you know, animal kingdom or whatever the hell she said. If she actually does have a husband, all power to that marriage, because I just don't think I could be with someone who thinks that way about relationships whilst being in a relationship. And let's go full circle, shall we? If she does have a husband and she's saying relationships get worse, not better, how did you get married then? As I mentioned way before. But anyway, let's start wrapping this up, shall we? Let's go over to the original video, check out the original comments, see what people are saying. If you're new here, we do a thing called Tantalizing Talk, where I look at the original comments, see what people are saying, and then we open up the discussion over here, and then you guys as well can let me know your thoughts if you disagree or agree with anything from the video, if you disagree or agree with anything I've said, and hey ho, we talk. Civilly though, by the way, if any of you start doing up uncivilness, I obviously won't respond. So I'll see you in a jiffy. Goodness me, that actually took a lot out of me. But I did enjoy it, something a little bit different. But as always on this channel, I seem to get heated. Yes, I love it. There was a lot of comments about Janelle. First comment, strap yourselves in, because we got some comments that really lay it down all on the line. Janelle is so sex obsessed. Holy, she treats sex so casually and expects other people to have that same worldview inherently for some reason. Like, to argue that a relationship can be maintained following a partner cheating on them because it's just giving in to the cardinal flesh is wild. Cheating is more than just an act. For her argument to have any bearing in reality, then talking about problems in a relationship could not be a viable option before committing the act of cheating. There are more moral options that precede cheating. Now, I finally, thanks to this comment, understood the whole cardinal flesh point, because I think during the initial reaction, when I heard cardinal flesh, I was, what the shit is she talking about? But apparently, it's, cheating just means it's part of life. It's just something you do. Cardinal flesh, you know? It's just go out there and get your meat. What a disgusting view on things, huh? If she ever cheats and the husband takes an issue with that, is she just like, well, you know, cardinal flesh and whatnot? I'm really, really, really flabbergasted at what I've just watched, okay? Like, you guys don't understand how genuinely twisted my butthole is right now. Like, now, look, in all fairness, not only is Janelle, I think, sex obsessed, Asher, I think was his name, I feel like he's a bit too sex obsessed as well. But, you know, obviously this is where differing opinions come in, and I will admit that Asher seemed most open to having his mind changed. I think I picked out a comment like that we'll look at in a bit, but I'm the same. You guys in most videos pick out some things that maybe I misunderstood, or maybe I can see things a little bit differently if I understand this context. And then I'm always open to changing my mind. There are some non-negotiables, right? Like, for me, cheating is a no-go. You cheat on someone, you get the hell out of there. Do you know what I mean? Or they cheat on you, you get the hell out of there. And if you're gonna cheat on someone and you're no longer happy in the relationship, I recommend leaving before you start doing up other things. But you get my point. I'm open to changing my mind, so I feel like Asher is that type of person. Like, realistically, in this world, yeah, you can have your opinions, but when you hear new contexts, new viewpoints, you consider them, and then you can change your mind if it does, in fact, change your mind. So I appreciate Asher's open-mindedness. I still maybe think he was a bit too sex-obsessed, just because he kept bringing it up. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do think Janelle, as a whole, sex-obsessed, but there's no... I was going to say there's no facts to any of this, but I guess this is all opinions, isn't it? So can there ever really be facts with opinions and statistics and whatnot? But, you know, we're moving on. Okay, what I found dumbfounding, should that be dumbfounding? I don't know. Is that to the affirmation, cheating is the worst thing my partner could do to me. No one thought about being SA'd or abused mentally, physically, or both, or being with someone overly toxic. Like, bro, I'd rather get cheated on and do some self-esteem work than be with a manipulative, narcissist psychopath who will force me to do things I don't want to do. I agree. I think they maybe took that phrase, that sentence, a bit too maybe on the nose? Or did I take it too much on the nose? Because definitely using the very exaggerated thing of, you know, being emmed off by someone is the worst thing your partner could do. But in the more serious sense, you know, being abused, being SA'd, very much is worse than being cheated on. Now, alongside mental and physical abuse, I did mention financial abuse as well. You know, your partner manipulating you to funding their entire life, taking money from you, lying where the money's going, etc., and bleeding you dry as a result of it. You know, there's abuse in that form as well. There's a whole lot of bad things that can happen that is worse than cheating. So, whilst I did say that Janelle, you know, when she was on the extreme ends of the strongly sections, I didn't understand if she was necessarily backing herself up or not. But then also at certain points, e.g., the cheating is the worst thing, I feel like everyone as a whole, the ones on the strongly agree side, I don't think they considered anything else. And I think as a whole, everyone at certain points in that video didn't really consider other points for a few of the discussions. But look, that's their opinions, I guess. Ultimately, I can't help these people, can I? What is going on here? The laptop is none of your concern because you didn't ask. Jessica Rabbit is kind of confusing. First instance, you agree that women and men can't have platonic friendships because there will always be an underlying attraction. Doesn't that go against the instance of not dating someone you don't find attractive in the cases if they are platonic friends? I'm not even going to lie to you. Your comment baffles me as well. It was hard enough trying to understand Jessica Rabbit half the time. Genuinely, your comment hasn't helped me much either. But I think that's more testament to Jessica Rabbit's great ability to kerfuffle the situation. If she genuinely said, which she did, that you can't have platonic friends because there's an underlying sexual current or whatever the hell she said, what about berries? Sexual berries? Is that better than sexual currents? Do you get it? Because it's fruit.
This is great banter.
It's a load of nonsense, okay? You can very much, in my opinion, be friends with someone and not want to have sex with them. But apparently, some people in this world, goodness, they're just, I don't know. First of all, what's the logistics behind that? Because if you do have a friend who is of the opposite sex, when they're speaking to you, maybe you've gone out for some coffee or something, in the back of your mind, are you just, like, waiting for the opportunity to have sex with them or something? Do you know how, like, weirdly perverted that makes you seem? Or maybe it's not even weird. That kind of makes you perverted. You know, they're just sipping their coffee and you're like, yeah, any minute now, I'm gonna swoop in. I find that strange. This is the comment I was talking about. Asher changing his mind. I like the dude who kept changing his mind. Bro was actually listening to what people were saying and thinking hard on it. I get it. You know, I do see both sides of this, though. I do appreciate the fact that he was willing to change his mind on topics. You know, if the world in general was a lot more open to receiving new information and dictating their mindsets based on new information, probably it'd be a lot more peaceful world to live in. However, maybe there's an argument here that if you do get swayed too easily, are you really standing for anything? And I think there's a quote, if you stand for everything, you fall for nothing, or if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. So I can see it both ways. I mean, he seems an alright guy, maybe a bit too sex obsessed as I spoke about, but in terms of willing to discuss things, he was definitely a lot more open than majority of the people on that set. The next one, so you would break up a family because of getting cheated on, is the wildest form of victim blaming. Like, no, the one who cheats is the one who breaks the vow they made to their spouse in order to get married in the first place. The one who cheats is the one who breaks up the family from the inside. Now, I've been accused of victim blaming a lot because the catfish videos that we look at, I want scam victims to acknowledge the role that they play in scams, because whilst there is manipulation, they ultimately are the ones, disobeying the people around them and sometimes very inappropriately chasing very creepy relationships. So you have to acknowledge your part in the scam, because I think that's the best way to grow. But here is a genuine case of victim blaming, because whilst I may come across harsh, I feel like outright saying the person breaking up the family is the one that's not tolerating cheating is wild, because it's broken already. As soon as you overstep that boundary and, you stick your funny bits where the funny bits really shouldn't be stuck in, and vice versa, you've broken the family. You've not only betrayed the trust of your partner, you've betrayed the trust of your potential children, if they exist in the relationship, because you can't even be loyal to their mother, their father. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I didn't appreciate that, but, what a show I was watching in general. The next one, the statement, "We know that relationships get worse, not better," is crazy. Where are the statistics? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I said not too long ago, you can't really have statistics when concerning opinions, maybe. But I guess you can, right? If I think, for example, London has a high percentage of homeless people, is that an opinion? Because I feel like I can bring statistics to back that up. But maybe I'm getting a bit off topic here. Let me know in the comments. I'm kind of not making sense anymore. But we know that relationships get worse, not better, is crazy. So I'd like to believe that a relationship that goes on for a long period of time and both people love each other, they experience new things with each other year on year, that's getting better, no? Maybe even financially both of you are growing, XYZ, that's getting better. Now, that's not to say that some long-term relationships, year on year, month on month, don't deteriorate, because they do, right? And either that's happening naturally, or it is a case, unfortunately, that the relationship has abusive people within it. But getting worse and you've absoluted it is just ridiculous. So, what about your marriage then? Because you mentioned husband, but I don't know if you were speaking hypothetically. But it also implies that this is the mindset you're going to take into future relationships, unless you work on it, of course. And then that relationship will suffer, because you're already thinking in the back of your mind, it's going to get worse. Cheating is just trying to get your cardinal flesh or whatever. It's just very negative outlook on relationships. I don't know realistically what she ultimately thinks of relationships, but, I don't know if she was just rage baiting or whatever, but, next comment. As a female with divorced parents, I can confirm I am not on the stripper pole. Pet peeve of mine, if you've stuck around this channel for a while, I don't like the word female, don't like the word male. We're not in a medical context here, but I do understand this person. They are a woman with divorced parents, broken home, in brackets, kind of, and they are not on a stripper pole because, Janelle decided that everyone who is a stripper comes from a broken home background, spitting in strippers' faces as well. I saw some comments, commenting on the fact that Janelle's dress is that dress that she was wearing while simultaneously defecating on strippers is hypocrisy. Let me know your thoughts on that. Whew. With all that being said, I think we can call it here. It was actually refreshing to get a sort of change of pace on what we look at. And although I did get heated, I did enjoy discussing more things rather than, you know, scams, catfishing. Now, whilst relationship talk does bleed into catfishing and romance scams, in a more generalized sense, in this kind of discussion, I did enjoy this. But ultimately, it's up to you guys to let me know if you enjoyed this, and we'll do more of them. I don't know if they've done more of this particular show, but I'll check them out if people want to see it, and I'll check out more shows in general if people do want to see it, so let me know. Or else, I will come dressed as Jessica Rabbit? That video would swiftly get blocked because nobody's trying to see that. I'll see you guys next time. Do let me know of all your thoughts in the comments. You know, pause it, timestamp. You know, disagree with me, agree with me, let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.